All right, we are going to go ahead and get started. I want to talk about our first author tonight is very successful and writes these books that always resonate and always have a good message to them. And when the newest one came out, I was like, can they really do it again? Can they really once again make me more aware and more compassionate? And by George, they did. It's just the nicest book. It's one of my favorite people and favorite authors. And she is here to say hello tonight. And she's going to turn on her camera. And please welcome Katherine Applegate.
Thank you for that nice introduction. I actually thought you were at the bookstore. I'm really disappointed.
It does still look like this. I'm just not there.
I so wish we were all there together in one room, like in the old days when you did Educator's Nights. But I take some solace in the fact that I hope everybody watching is wearing, comfy robes and drinking heavily from a glass of wine or hot chocolate. And I chose to dress for the occasion because I am so honored to be here. But really, it's I need to preface this just briefly by saying thank you. You guys are amazing. You are heroes. I do not know how you got through the last year and a half. I can't even imagine between all the crises and all the crazies. It must have been, and I'm talking about past tense as if it's over, but we just have such great admiration for you. Teaching is challenging at the best of times, but this last year and a half, that you're still standing, holding your grade books high, it's so heartening, and we love you and admire you and appreciate you so much. By this time of night, usually, I'm like, I don't want to watch the news. I don't want to do anything that requires my brain to operate. I want to watch a sitcom or read a funny book. So I'm sorry to report that Willowdene is in fact about climate change, but it's really a hopeful book. I'm going to try to pull up my very abbreviated version of my keynote here. Let's see. I have so many to choose from. Let's try this one. And we will get that going. There it is. Okay. I love that cover by Charles Santoso. He is also the guy who did Wish Tree, and he is working. I'm just finishing another book, and he is working on the cover for that one, and I cannot wait to see it because he does animals, even imaginary animals, so beautifully. It's very hard. You just look out the window. You can't avoid it, especially where we live, not to know that the earth is in real trouble these days. You've got hurricanes and coral reefs dying and ice caps melting. And of course, our personal favorite, fires. And it's depressing and it's overwhelming. And I know it is for kids too. And that's why I decided I wanted to write a little bit about climate change, about biodiversity, about what we can do to make tiny changes in the right direction for our planet. But I really struggled with how to make it accessible. In fact, I opened the book with an apology, something I've never done before, for Mother Earth. Thanks for putting up with us. This is my official author photo. I always show this because it represents the many incarnations I always go through before I get a book where I want it to be. And it's so important for kids to know that, writing is work. It's all about rewriting, as you all know so well. So it took me a while to figure out how to approach this story. I had plenty of real life eco crises I could have worked with, obviously, sadly, and plenty of endangered species. But I'm living in LA right now, and we are surrounded by coyotes. And I know you guys have plenty of them too. They're ubiquitous here. And it's some people love them, some people hate them. I happen to love them, but I also am in possession of these are two of my three pets, all of whom are appetizer sized. And I was trying to figure out a way to work in tandem with these neighbors. And in our case, it actually was neighbors. We have an empty lot next door, and there was a den of pups there. So we created this. Around here, they call them catios. My husband calls it a catopia. But basically, it was that way to interact with nature and let the coyotes come when they may, as they have on occasion. We've had them, pee in the mark the backyard, and yet to to live in harmony of sorts. And so I was thinking a lot about that, and I wanted to create a nuisance species. And what I did was I took, and it was sort of like a recipe. I love doing this. I did this with Endling too. I took a hint of skunk and a pinch of warthog and a little bit of porcupine quills and some beaver tail. And I had this guy. This is a screecher, an old version of a screecher, quite old. Here's a younger version, beautifully rendered by Charles. I love this guy. And screechers are interesting because they are reviled in this small fantasy world that I've created. Again, I decided to create something that was close to our world, but not quite, a little bit dated. The town in question is called Perchance. And the problem with screechers is not only do they howl at night insanely for absolutely no reason that anyone can understand, they also smell horrifically badly. And when they're scared, they slap their tails on the ground, and the stench is unbelievable. So there's a bounty on their heads. People are trying to get rid of them. Willadine, my heroine, is about the only person in Perchance who even likes these guys. Now, on the other hand, we have another species, and they are called hummingbears. They have a hint of hummingbird, as you might expect, a pinch of tiny polar bear. And this is what they look like. They're, of course, adorable and beloved, and a huge tourist attraction. My model for this was monarchs. I had just been to Pacific Grove not long ago, and when they come and they just unmask, they're on the trees just turning a bright orange, and it was so beautiful. I wanted to kind of create that same kind of ecotourism species. The cool thing about hummingbears is they create nests out of bubbles, and the bubbles absorb sunlight and glow all night. So it's an exquisite visual, and people come from all over to see them. Unfortunately, they have started to disappear, and nobody knows why. There are our two main characters along the animal end of things anyway. We have our screecher and our hummingbear, but Willadine is really the key to this entire story. I wanted to suggest, before I forget, when I do school visits, I love to ask kids to create their own species. It has all these wonderful STEAM connections, because you have to think not only about what you appreciate in a species, but how they survive, what are predators, climate, all the ins and outs that go with creating a biodiverse environment. And it's really fun for kids. I usually, when I ask them to do it, I entirely lose control of the class, because they all have such great ideas, cheetah with wings, and they're off and running. So it's a really fun thing to do, and it was the best part of writing this book for me. Willadine, I like to think of as sort of Jane Goodall meets Greta Thunberg, the wonderful Swedish climate activist. She's not really comfortable in her own skin. She's really doesn't go to school very much. She wanders the woods near her home. Her family was killed in a fire when she was much younger, and she lives with two older women who took her in. And she's trying to navigate her pain and her loss. And also she's sort of a budding scientist without knowing it. And she spends a great deal of her time taking notes about the disappearing screechers and trying to figure out what's happening. it's a sort of eco mystery, but she also learns how to be a friend in the process of doing this. So that's an important part of the story too. Now, we didn't want to write this and just send it out into the world, leaving kids feeling frustrated and hopeless. So we created an educational packet called Go Green with Willadine, and you can find it here at readwilladine.com. And it's full of fantastic resources and great ideas. The most basic of which is probably the most important, some stationery, so you can write our leaders and tell them why they need to be getting in gear on this incredibly vital issue. Kids, at the end of the day, I always tell them, you're going to be the superheroes. You're the ones who are going to tell this story and are going to make it be okay. And when I feel particularly sad and frustrated and even terrified, I find spending some time with young readers always reassures me that things are going to be okay. The epigraph to Willadine reads, "I have learned you are never too small to make a difference." And I think that's so important for kids to remember. Now, on a lighter note, Patty suggested I tell you also about Doggo and Pepper, which is a very much younger book for early readers just getting started. I have a thinking about dogs lately, and just dogs on the brain, and they're so cool. They're just my favorite animal in the world. And this one is about an old guy and a young guy trying to get along. Forgive me for the for this very simplistic presentation. This is from my my presentation I do for kids. But what I love about this entire series, there are going to be 3 of them, is that the illustrations by Charlie Alder are just so charming. She captures the fun and the sweetness and the good nature of these 2 very, very different guys. And this particular story comes to a sort of head when they go out in the middle of the night and have an adventure together. There is another Doggo and Pepper coming out in March of 2022, and I hope you'll check it out. And again, thank you. You guys are just amazing.
Well, likewise. And one other thing, I won't have you talk about it, but I want to remind people that Animorphs is now a graphic novel series. And
it is indeed.
Discovering it all over again. It's so fun.
It is fun. And Chris Grine gets all the credit for that. He's done all the heavy lifting in the art. So very cool. Yeah,
it's been really great. If I had any questions for you, it would be, or not questions, but comment, the fact that you managed to tell a story about the interdependency of a whole ecological system in a way that a 9-year-old could read it and understand it. You know, the way that everything is figured out. It just, I just think it was great, Catherine. I think you did, as usual.
That was hard. Yeah, it's because you know, just it's a Rubik's cube. You know, you get going and you change one little thing and everything else changes. So I had to keep it simple enough so that a very young reader would grasp the basics. And yeah, and I learned a lot along the way. I loved doing the research. It was great.
Yeah, it's usually when we humans try and fix something that things go haywire. So
funny how that works.
Yeah. I can't thank you enough for being here. It's so good to see your face. I miss seeing you in person.
Oh, so. I know. I will stop by as soon as I get back up there, which I hope is very soon.
Thank you so much for being here.
Take care. Of course. Thank you.
Bye. Well, that was perfect timing, because our next author has joined us, and she has this book that I read because I wanted to see what it was like. Wasn't sure that, you know, it would necessarily resonate. It's called Not a Unicorn. You guys, it's so good. It's so good. I loved it so much. And it stayed with me. And I kept thinking about it. And we have the author here tonight. Her name is Dana Middleton. And she wrote this, and it's so smart. And it's so, and I mean, I read parts of it with a lump in my throat. You know, it was so dear. So please give your attention and your eyes on Dana Middleton and let her tell us about her book.
Hi, Patty. So nice to meet you, and thank you so much for inviting me. I'm just so pleased to be here. First of all, thank you. Not a Unicorn is my book here from Chronicle Books, about a girl named Jewel Conrad who's in 8th grade, and she has this thing. She has what looks like a unicorn horn on her head, which, as you can imagine, would be very distressing for an 8th grader. And the whole book is really about her journey to come to terms with who she is. And there's some fantasy, there's some adventure. I hope it's the kind of book that will keep kids really engaged and at the same time help them to really tackle those bigger subjects within their own lives. I think I've kind of come to, as I've written it, this idea of like, what's your unicorn horn? Because we all kind of have something in our lives that, especially when we're in middle school, that we just, if we could change it, if we could change it. And oftentimes we can't. So what do you do? What do you do when you can't? And then also the question of the book becomes, what do you do when you can? So because Jewel goes on her own journey, as you well know, Patty. So I'm hoping that educators will, share this book with their kids, and that will spark some kind of conversation about self-acceptance and inclusion and all the things that are so important to us at all ages.
Did you draw on, I mean, I'm sure you did, but experiences you had in middle school? Because the idea that, she feels both so different and is so sure how she'll feel if she gets rid of the horn, how she'll look and how life will change for her. And of course, nothing is ever what you imagine. Did you find that? Yeah.
Obviously not exactly the same, but I think that we all, not exactly the same, but I think we all have that feeling, right? That of something like, and I think for me, it was more of an internal feeling of that feeling of really like wanting to belong so badly, and maybe belonging here, but not in this bigger space or whatever it is. And I think those feelings I could draw on for Jewel's story. I will say just about her as a character, she just came one day and persisted until I relented, because, there's something about writing a book about a girl with a horn on her head that I think I resisted it, because I'm thought, oh, wait, are people going to think I'm weird? It's like, what is this thing that I'm going to write? And I was so glad, obviously, that I did. But it took me a little while. Like, I think I had to deal with some of Jewel's issues as an adult. Like, wait, is this okay? But it was for me, it was really such a fun story to write, but also a worthwhile one. But it wasn't just the medicine. I hope you saw that when you're reading. Sometimes we have this theme or this message we want to get through, but I really hope that it's an enjoyable ride.
It was very enjoyable. And that's, again, you tend to think that something like that is going to be in some way like formulaic, like here's what's going to happen. And it was such a friendship tale. It was a, coming of age story. And the kids in her orbit felt so real to me. Like, you had really good voices, and really, sometimes you can tell when somebody's writing about a genre that they don't know, or an age group that they don't know. And it didn't feel like that. It felt like you had teenagers in your back pocket. So.
Oh, well, thank you very much. Well, I don't in my household, but I have some nieces and nephews who are teenagers who tend to inform me. But, I don't know about other writers who you're going to talk to tonight, and you talk to obviously all the time. But, I think it may be it's that kid in us that really is what we have to, pull from.
Yeah, I think kids will be able to read this and get the message. It's not a message heavy book in that it's talking down to them, but they're going to be able to see that the unicorn horn could be a euphemism for anything that they're dealing with. And I hope I think they'll stick with it, because it's just such a good tale. Like, it's very easy to read. I talk with Taylor often about books that, whether or not you finish them, like I read a ton, and sometimes I'm like, I just can't make myself read it, and yours was absolutely not that. It was one that went upstairs and got finished pretty darn quickly. So,
oh boy, that makes me so happy. I mean, I've heard that from people who said, I started it on the Saturday and couldn't put it down, which as an author, you're like, oh my gosh, that makes me so happy, because I'm the same way. At some point you're like, if I'm not engaged by a certain page, why do I want to do this? And for kids especially, right? I mean, a kid if you can't get them in, they're not going to stick. Why would they?
No, yeah, it's way too much work. Without saying what it is, the initial twist is just so great. It's so fun. When there's
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I love that. It was very good.
Were you surprised?
Yes, I was,
Okay.
because I was thinking it was a standard, ex best friend, mean girl. I didn't know. And then when it was with the reveal, it was so good. So good.
Thank you.
Nice-
There
nice
are a
touch.
few reveals in there that I was surprised by, actually. So I can
Yeah.
be excited about them, because when I was writing them, they came kind of as surprises, and that's always so much fun.
So I'll ask you a kid question, just because there are no kids present. How long were you working on this? Was this a long project, or?
It was a longer project than other projects for me. Probably because in some ways the story was more foreign to me. The character was less like me in some ways, and the fantasy element was terrifying. I saw you had Katherine Applegate before me. It was like she could, I don't think it's terrifying to her. I think
Right, yeah.
she's got her arms around that pretty well. But for me, it really was. But I'm so glad I did it, because it stretched me as a writer, and it was fun to go places that I wasn't sure where they were going to take me. Like the whole thing, but there's a graphic novel, as you know, in their Highwaymen. That whole thing was just so interesting that it just kind of came, and I decided to follow it, and I'm really glad I did, because that took me to someplace really unexpected.
Yeah, that's right. I had actually forgotten that part, as I was remembering more like the first half. I did read the whole thing, but just because I enjoyed the characters so much all the way through. And yeah, no, I think it's a treat, and I think teachers should definitely have it in the classroom, or do a class read with it, because it's very revealing on a lot of levels. You did a great job. Now, it says in the bio on the back that you've never actually seen a unicorn. Is that still true?
I'm not sure anymore. I'm thinking I see them constantly. They seem to be everywhere in my world right now, real or not. I'm gonna stick with that.
I think that's fair. Do you have any questions for teachers? We don't have it open so that they can question you directly, but is there anything you've been wondering about?
There's being a writer, you're so isolated. So for the teachers, and I don't know exactly how many or where or all the things, but I am interested so much in like what, especially since this past year happened, how important is reading still? I mean, I know it's really important, but how much are you able to bring into the classroom? Are you still able to do read alouds? Are there, we're not doing author visits like we were. Certainly we haven't in the past year. So I guess too, how can authors support what teachers are doing? There's nothing more fun than having
teachers want to throw some.
No, go ahead.
Teachers, go ahead and throw some answers in the chat if you have any insights.
Oh yeah, there's nothing more fun than, having a classroom read your book and get it and have that discussion, and I think that's for authors, period. I mean, we just, it's the greatest group in the world to write for is, elementary and middle school kids. Let's see here. I found that kids were super excited to be able to come back to the library. I bet, because a lot of kids. Sorry.
It feels so normal to be able to read.
I know. And to also have to be able to have somebody to kind of be your guide. Librarians and teachers and people who are really into the literature that is of today. And I'm sure not all are, but many are, and are such great advocates for reading and for kids, and can actually point that kid to the right thing. I mean, this book is not going to be for every kid, but I feel like it's really going to be for some kids. You know what I mean? I mean, like some kids are gonna be like, this is the book they really get. I feel like that. I sure hope so. I mean, it's kind of trickling out to kids now. So I'm really going to be excited to see the response, because it just came out, not even a month ago. So it's just getting out there.
There we go. And okay, so kids are loving author visits even via Zoom, which is really great.
Yeah, I've done some via Zoom in the past year, and we'll probably continue to for a while, especially in California, because it's still kind of, I'm in Los Angeles where, I don't think they want anybody else in their schools right now.
Yeah, Northern California, we've done a few visits the last few weeks outdoors. Now it's finally raining here, so that may put a quick end to that. But we have so many schools that have outdoor, not amphitheaters, in the big sense, but definitely a proscenium or some little stage and sitting area. And they work great. I mean, we have to be a little bit less tech dependent. You know, we can't have huge slideshows, but
Right,
here's
exactly,
another,
exactly.
another comment here. Our library is so popular, we had to start limiting numbers and giving out limited passes. That's
Oh,
great.
that is so great. That's so great. You know, the kids, I mean, because reading is the constant, and reading is what kids could do over this pandemic as long as they had access to books. And
Yeah.
that's the other thing, you know, you have to have that access. And so the libraries are where it's at.
Absolutely.
And the bookstores too.
Well, that's okay. It's okay. One thing I always tell kids when I go visit schools, and teachers in attendance definitely have heard this, is that you don't have to buy a book to come to a bookstore. You just have to like books. You know, they can come in and shop and make wish lists and just look at things and feel, because I want them to feel part of the conversation. So, but
Oh, I
we're
love that.
blessed in this town with a whole lot of good librarians in the schools. So,
Let's see. Let's see, can we get, oh, well, go, that's just for you. So
yes.
well,
We'll
if
go
anybody
over
wants to
everything.
reach me or know more about my thing, is danamiddletonbooks.com. And it's very unicorny over there as I just said right now, because all the unicorn stuff. But I also, you know, part of this, I wanted to say that when I wrote this book, I thought I wanted to write a book for kids who had kind of grown out of the unicorn, but it was really important to them at one time, but now they're maybe a little old or a little too cool for a unicorn, to be able to kind of plug into that I don't know, that old feeling, but maybe in a different way, because this is not a rainbow and unicorn kind of book.
No, I think you nailed that though. I think you found that blend of a tween, teen, and unicorns. It's a great job.
Thank you so much.
So I guess we will let you go. We've got a lot of books to cover tonight. We have one more author waiting, but Dana, thank you so much for being here. It's nice to meet you in person.
It's
And,
so nice to meet you, Patty. Thank you so much for having me. I hope to visit your store one of these days.
Would love that. Would love
That'd be
that.
great.
So thank you again, and take care. Good luck to this book. We'll do
Thank you
our
so
part.
much. All right. Take care. Have a good night, everybody. Thanks for having
Bye-bye.
me.
So with that, we're just slamming these authors down tonight. We've got one of my favorites, both as an author and as a friend. He's here to join us and talk about his new graphic novel. Please give a warm welcome to Jon Agee. Hey, Jon.
Hi there. Yeah.
Hey, there you are.
Hey, everybody.
Nice to meet you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, so far.
Okay. Good. So far.
It's Zoom.
Yeah. So, let me do.
Oh, you are sunburned. Are you sunburned?
I was up in Gualala yesterday, and I was and it was the last of the sun before all this rain. Oh wait, here we go. Okay, good. I think that's good. Yeah, I got a little sun. So, you want me to talk about?
Sure. You have a new book coming out that the concept sounded interesting, and the actual is just great. It's phenomenal. I really love it.
I don't have an actual copy of it.
You know why? I have yours.
Oh well, I have a fake. I have a
Okay.
jacket over a copy of a
Oh,
bill.
but I have the whole thing.
Yeah.
You gave it to me and it said author copy on it. So I think I have yours.
Well, this is not even this. I do this sometimes. I put a jacket over. This is a wonderful book by William Steig, The Real Thief. Great
Oh,
book.
nice.
Yeah. But it fits my jacket perfectly. So, you know, that's anyway.
Nice.
Otto is a graphic novel. Do you want me to tell you all this, or do you want to ask me questions?
No, I want you to do it. It's much better coming from you.
Okay. So the question I get is, okay, why a graphic novel? Well, because I've always wanted to, because picture books, which I do mostly, which I do all the time, are kind of cousins to the graphic novel. They're cousins to comic books, which are, you know, related to graphic novels. And I've done palindromes for, you know, I've made a little side reputation as a palindrome person, creating palindromes. This is actually my palindrome. I mean, I don't only do the pictures for these things, but I create these palindromes forwards and backwards say the same thing, right? That's go hang a salami, I'm a lasagna. So I've created these books, and and my publisher at Penguin was thinking I could do another palindrome book, but she didn't want me to do another book of, these are mostly cartoons with, let's see, these are cartoons with a palindrome, like spoon it in, oops, she's feeding her snake. So she said, how about a story told in palindrome? And I thought, okay, that would be interesting. A story without pictures would be unreadable, but because you can tell, because you can use pictures to kind of move the story along, you might be able to do it. It won't be, it'll be, somewhat coherent. So that was what I set out to do. And it was a lot harder than I thought, much harder. There were times when I said to her, can we turn this into a story of like maybe 4 short stories told in palindrome? And she said, no, I think you need to do 1 story told in palindromes. And so this book was signed, we signed the contract for this book maybe 10 years ago. And I plunged in, around 3 years later, I was still trying to figure it out. And then during the pandemic, I really kind of finished the book. So, but it's the story of a boy named Otto, who is, let's see if I have anything here. Okay, I can show you. Here's a scene of him stepping out of this door. But in the beginning, you see his parents are in the kitchen, his father sipping this soup, and all the dialogue is in palindrome. The father says, Otto, it's time for lunch. Mother goes downstairs. He's reading a comic book.
A comic book called LOL, by the way.
Oh, well, yes, laugh out loud, comic book, yeah. And then you see little things around his room that will reappear in the graphic novel. But where the book takes off is he's at this beach with his parents. He's looking out at the ocean. He sees certain things, but then all of a sudden this rat walks by where he's seated and walks down the shore. Otto turns to his father, says, Dad. His father's sleeping, says Otto. Otto says, was it a rat I saw? All palindromes, no, son. And he looks and he sees his dog chasing after the rat. And there we go. Sorry about the movement here. And so he goes chasing after his dog. He loses his dog. And that leads him on this, journey through a very palindromic world, where he sees everything's in palindrome. Here's the Copperfields in my book. This is what happens when you're in a palindromic world and you come across a bookstore in Petaluma, but it's instead of the books that Patty sells, every book title is a palindrome. Zone by Ben Oz. No Snivels by Iris Levinson. Forwards and backwards, it says the same thing. Where's the other one? Oh, this is the pulp fiction right here. This is, let's see where. Emily Ortega, Get Roy Lime. I like these. And Red Lace Kimono by Mike Calder. Forwards and backwards says the same thing. So anyway, in the end, he's reunited with his parents. You're taken on this journey where everything's a palindrome, and yet there's a story to it. And he's reunited with his dog and his parents, and at the end, you kind of think, how in the world did Jon Agee do this?
That's
And
exactly what I thought.
yeah, and some people might think, why? Why did he do this? Sometimes I ask myself that question. No, but I love going through this, reading the book, because it's kind of impossible, and yet it's plausible. And I think that was the challenge: how to tell a story with these limitations, and yet make it coherent and enjoyable and fun. And so,
How was it working on it with an editor? Like, it's got to have been a little bit different than usual, or?
They appreciated the story aspect of it, but the palindrome aspect of it, I don't think they understood as much. They said, could you do this? Could you do that? And I thought, well, there's no palindrome for that. There's absolutely no way, I mean, that I can, write that, because there's not a palindrome for that, what you want to happen here. A lot of the book is, you're led by the palindromes. You have to figure out how the palindromes can, help you get through this scene. There's one scene in the book where there are just two palindromes, which make this whole scene work, which is the boy, he gets onto, he sees this elderly lady on a boat, and he introduces himself, Madam, the palindrome. He gets, and she says, hop up. And he says, oh, so that's a palindrome. And then he gets in the boat, and he starts to talk, and she says, no word, row on, which is a palindrome. And so he starts to row this boat, and they go out into a storm, and the storm gets worse and worse. And every time he tries to interrupt her, she says, no word, row on. So eventually they sink, but it's kind of comical, just based on two palindromes, where he says, Madam, and she says, no word, row on, Madam. And then, so, but again, if it's the pictures and the words and the combination of the pictures and the words kind of give it this unique dynamic that, makes the book work. Yeah.
No, I think it's great. And I think it's both fun because it's just a fun graphic novel, but also fun because even the most reluctant reader is going to want to pour through it, see if they can find one you missed, or, they're going to want to really see how it works. And so you did it. And then the illustrations are just, as usual, great.
Right. Well, there is one palindrome in here that is not, well, it's not a true word palindrome. So there is something that you could find. I won't tell you what it is, but it's a palindrome, but it's not a real word. So I cheated. But it's
Well, I would say you have to. I won't say what it is. I think I have one idea, but
building.
No, I bet it was fun. I bet it was kind of something you almost would obsess over after a while, because it's always in the background you're trying to work out. Do you think in palindromes? Like, do you see palindromes day to day, just in your normal course of business?
I used to. I've kind of driven it out of my, I used to do it too much, but I'd be driving along, and I'd see, here, I'll give you an example. I see up in front of me a Subaru, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And I think, oh, Subaru backwards is Uribus, right? But the palindrome in me would say, okay, if I put a D right here, it's a palindrome, forwards and backwards. And now I have an idea for a picture. It's a Subaru Durabus. It would be, a very sturdy, all-terrain vehicle, something like that,
Perfect.
They should make a book. They should make a car like that.
You should pitch it to them.
Yeah. Right. They're ready for anything. So no, I think less in palindrome now, but I have collected so many palindromes and written so many palindromes, and that's how I started this book. I just took everything I had, categorized them, put them into different, figured out how I could create situations that would fit together. So that's really how, the book
And
was.
do you have like a working document that has all your palindromes, or do they all live in your head?
Oh, no, they're all down on a paper. Oh yeah. They're not in my head. No way. I have them all on files, and that I categorize them. alphabetically. It's sometimes they're categorized by, yeah, well, they're alphabetical, but there's a whole palindromes on wonton soup. I have so many palindromes that use the word wonton. Palindromes with use the word cat. Lots of palindromes with stacked cats. Can I? Stacy's cats. You know, there's palindromes with no, the word no, and palindromes with the word one. And there's just all these things that you can access when you're putting together a palindromic graphic novel. Which
That's
don't do it.
awesome.
Don't do it. I've done it.
Got it. It's been
So,
done.
yeah.
For teachers who are watching who do crossword puzzles, it's not uncommon to see Jon Agee in the New York Times crossword. It usually will say, noted palindromist, John, right?
Palindromist John, humorous John, right? Yeah, it helps if your last name is Agee.
It's true. It helps to have a lot of vowels, but I'll usually take a picture of it and send it to him anyway, because I think it's cool
Thank you
to
for
know
that.
somebody in the New York Times crossword.
Collecting them, yeah.
Well, I appreciate you joining us. The book, when is it coming out? Has it slipped, or is it still early November?
I saw my editor back in well, a couple weeks ago, and she assured me that it's in the United States.
Okay.
So many books, as you know, they're even bestsellers are having a hard time getting reprinted and all this stuff. So I'm just happy that it's in the States, and
Yeah.
and so she says November 2nd. Yeah.
Excellent. That's great. That's just next 2 weeks, right?
Well,
Very
we'll
good.
see. We'll see.
Yes, we will. Well, thank you so much for joining us tonight. It's very nice to see you. I hope to see you soon offline, but
Yes.
it's great. I can't wait for it to come out. It's gonna be a lot of fun.
Why I'm perspiring tonight, but it's that light,
It's
right?
the hot lights.
Hot lights.
That's it.
I think it's actually the educators out there. They're kind of making me a little nervous, especially, a couple of them. I see they're looking at me.
John, thank
Anyway,
you so much.
you're welcome.
Good to see you.
Yeah. See you soon.
Well, he's still on, so I don't want to talk about him, but boy, he's so talented. He's amazing. He can hear me, I think. So I'll only say good things about him. But that is the end of our presentations. And now I have a couple of housekeeping things I was going to tell you about tonight. One is Money for Schools, which is a fundraiser that Copperfields does. You sign up your school online, and if any of your school population buys books at Copperfields during that set period of time, which I think is November 2nd through 6th or something, it's coming up really soon. They just give your school's name at the counter. The salesperson will click on your school in a drop-down menu, and then all the money they spend, your school will get 20% of it before tax. I know that Jamie just dropped the link in our chat, so if you're interested in it, you can, you can sign up as a classroom or as a school and encourage your parents, if they're going to be Christmas shopping anyway, buy from Copperfields and your school will get 20%. It's like the most low effort book fair you can imagine. So that is coming up, and the link's in chat, and also you can find it through our website, and it's coming up in about 10 days. So I wouldn't dawdle. Carrie Holt is an author who we featured last year at this Educator Night. She had the book Ben B and the new one, Ben Y. She's going to be in town. She's not available to do school events, but I'm going to drive her by to meet librarians, and we're just going to do sort of a tour of schools. If you would like to have K.A. Holt come to your school and, just say hi, just get to meet her. I think she's brilliant. Shoot me an email and we'll build a little tour around town. Of course, if I really had good notes, I'd be able to tell you the date, but I can't remember, but I think it's early December, like December 3rd or something. So let me know if you're interested and I'll get more information for you. And then tomorrow night is our educator shopping night. So if you're here listening, you are invited to shop if you are a teacher with either your gold card from the store or your teacher ID or a paycheck stub, or if we can, at worst case, find you on the school's website, you can come in and shop tomorrow night from 7 to 9. It will just be teachers. We'll have stacks, as many stacks as we can, of all these books that we've talked about. You can use a school PO. If we don't have enough quantities on hand, we'll special order them for you, but you will still get an extended discount on any books, not only that you buy for your school, but that you buy for yourself. So if you want to do some Christmas shopping tomorrow night, be efficient and you can get your teacher discount on puzzles and on also those socks for your aunt that you never know what to get. So I hope that you will come on down and do some serious shopping. Bring the book list that I sent out. Anybody that actually RSVP'd, I send a book list to tonight. If you didn't get one, you're welcome to email me and I will have them out tomorrow night so you can pick one up when you come in. But they have the ordering information we would need. So, oh, I'm sorry. Good question. Petaluma Copperfields, the one in the background. And yeah, the Money for Schools promotion is all the stores. Educator shopping night tomorrow night from 7 to 9 is only in Petaluma, 7 to 9 p.m. I mean, you could come earlier, Alice, it would be okay. But, you know, we're trying to have it be just for you guys. And we, you know, I asked if we could serve hot cider and have little cookies. And someone pointed out to me it's very difficult to wear masks and drink hot cider. So we'll have virtual hot cider tomorrow night. So I guess we could have virtual glasses of wine too. You can have whatever virtual drink you want. And shop around. I'll be there to help talk about books and guide you to more things. And I think it will be a lot of fun. And I'm looking forward to seeing you in person. So also tonight at 7:30, we're transitioning to a different link, which you've all received for our high school night. Feel free to jump on. I've got two cool authors for that one. And even if you don't want to stay for the rest of it, come to the beginning and you can hear some more great authors talk about things. And now I guess I'd best get moving to tell you about other books. So going quickly down the list, the third book in the Astronaut series. You may remember last year we had John Cheska join us. This is the third of three of the book of these three characters who go trying to find a Cinderella planet that we can move to if we've really messed up Earth. This is called The Perfect Planet. See how there's the name on the spine there? It's super cool. And very fun graphic novel, very, you know, crazy hijinks, but also with really both cool illustrations and cool little bits of science work in, because Cheska never misses an opportunity to teach people stuff, to teach kids stuff. This just came out, and so there are three in the series, and it's called Astronauts by John Cheska, rhymes with Fresca. Oh, good. I'm glad you've been waiting for it, Krista. Yeah, it's fun. It's good. So that's the first one. Another book for your older readers, Beasts and Beauty. And the way that I was trying to think about how to talk about this, if you imagine when you play the game telephone and somebody says, you know, the ghost ate the cheese, and by the time the message gets to you, it's just totally wrong. Well, if you take current fairy tales that we know and tried to back them up to what really happened way back, that's what Soman Chainani has done with all of the tales in this book. He takes every traditional fairy tale we know and reimagines, you know, what really happened. I mean, a lot of the magic wasn't there. That became in the lore and the storytelling over generations, but there were some real basic things that happened. I think he did such a good job with it. So this is, I think it'd be of more interest for, you know, 5th through 8th and on up into high school, but very cool book, very cool concepts. And so Beasts and Beauty by Soman Chainani. Next, another author that can never do any wrong is Kate DiCamillo. This is her new one called The Beatrice Prophecy. And she's going to be Zoom visiting us in mid-November, I think. We've already signed up some schools because we're going to have a bunch of schools on the call. If you're rabidly interested, let me know. I don't know how much room we have, but I would try to add you. This is a book illustrated by the great Sophie Blackall about a young girl named Beatrice who shows up at a, what do they call it, where like Friar Tuck lives. Anyway, it's just a retreat, and she shows up there, and the brothers of this order take her in and nurse her back to health, and also kind of try to figure out what her story is, because it's so unique, and they also protect her and where she came from and what she has to accomplish. It's so good. And every time a new Kate DiCamillo comes out, I'm like, she can't do it again. Like, it's not going to be that great. You can't have that many great books. And so I read them almost judgingly, like this is going to be the one where it just doesn't work. And they always work. And this one did too. So The Beatrice Prophecy, we have some signed copies with book plates from both Kate and Sophie, which is pretty cool. And yeah, I think it's really good. It's very empowering. told in just a way that I think kids will get sucked right in, as I did. We talked last year with Carrie Holt, K.A. Holt, about Ben B. The sequel is out. This is about Ben Y. It's a story about kids who have a tough time reading. And in the first book, they have to go to summer school because they didn't get the right score on the state test. And there are 4 of them in the classroom under the stairs. The teacher is very innovative and finds ways to work with them and encourage them to read while also letting them play Minecraft, which is the coolest thing. And she's realized that they are very smart kids, even if not in a traditional sense. And so it's quite a bond they form. And Ben B is one of the kids. There's another kid named Ben. He's Ben Y. And so this is his book. This just came out, continues the story. Actually, Ben Y is a girl, sorry. Continues her story and still has the same kids in the mix and has that great way of telling stories, both in drawings and game chat and text messages, which make it a lot more accessible for kids who think they don't like to read a whole long book. Carrie knows her audience well. Her son is a huge Minecrafter, and I think she did it again. So again, Ben Y, which just came out. This came out, I have not had a chance to read any of this, but this is called The Cursed Carnival. It's a compilation of stories of myths from it's called Cursed Carnival and Other Calamities. And there are new stories about mythical heroes from a variety of authors, including Rick Riordan. And it came out and immediately started selling. So I don't know how he gets the word out so quickly, but kids came in and snagged it and are having a really good time reading it. It's with a lot of the authors that he's been working on books with. And yeah, it seems pretty good. But again, I haven't read it, but can't go wrong with Rick Riordan. Okay. But speaking of Rick Riordan, this came out yesterday, Daughter of the Deep. And it's kind of a retelling of Julius Verne's 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. It's got a girl main character and she's very cool. I just started it yesterday, so I haven't read much of it, but it's just the way all of his other books read, you know, with this kid who has access to some sort of either magic or mythic life, and there's calamity in their life, and then obviously they're going to save the day, superhero. But I love that he's got a girl in this role instead of Percy Jackson. It's just, she's already a very cool character. She's a freshman in high school, I think. So Daughter of the Deep by Rick Riordan, which just came out. Continuing down the list, I love this graphic novel. It is called Death and Sparkles. Death is Death, who is really bummed because he doesn't have any friends. Like every time he meets somebody, if he touches them, they die. And that's kind of a drag. And it's his job to just go around and have people, you know, meet their end. And it's kind of a regular job for him. And he's not got a lot going on that's very, very inspiring. He just knows that it's his day to get up and go knock off the people that have to be knocked off. And he comes across and meets this unicorn whose name is Sparkles. And Sparkles, as most unicorns would probably be, is very vain and full of himself, demanding celebrity. And they kind of collide and they have this crazy, funny adventure between Death and Sparkles the unicorn. And I've heard kids laughing over it. I've definitely seen them reading it in the store, and it's a whole lot of fun. It's dark, but it's more funny than dark. So I love it. I just love the concept. I think they came up with a really good one. This book, Frankie and Bug by Gail Forman. First time she's written for middle readers instead of high school. And it's set back early, I think it's like 1968 in Southern California. And it's this girl who's her older brother, as older brothers will do, has kind of ditched her. He's no longer letting her tag along. And she's seeing this long summer stretch out in front of her. And she befriends this boy who is visiting for the summer. And his story is really compelling and sweet, and her friendship is really dear. And I had a girl who came in, I'd given her an advance copy, and she came in, she said, as soon as that comes out, I want to write the review of it because it's that good. She's really excited about it. So
We're still here. I think Patty is getting kicked off and having some Zoom issues again. So if you hang tight, she'll be right back. Thanks, everyone. Great, she's back. All right.
There we go. Sorry about that, gang. I'll go faster. The third book in the front desk series called Room to Dream. Our main character goes to China to visit family for the first time and is dealing with, encroaching big businesses, putting her hotel out of business. But it's just kind of a nice wrap up to all three of them. Okay, moving right along. This is called Hooky, another great graphic novel, very fun about these witches and a prophecy. And it's been flying off the shelves. I've only read the first 2 chapters, but I can see why kids like it. Now I'm really anxious about spending too much time on any one book because I don't want you to go away. So we'll just keep going. And this book is kind of amazing. This is called The Oddity, or just Oddity, actually. And it's where magical properties are embedded in things. So if you had a beautiful old crystal doorknob, it might be worth a lot, both in value and also in its magical strength. And there are people who collect oddities and trade in them, and this girl finds one that's pretty amazing. And it's just a really interestingly done story. If I probably had any call out, I sometimes get tired of stories that at the end have sort of a Steven Spielberg kind of massive battle scene. But other than that, and even that was good, but this, I just thought it was so clever and felt like really new magic to me and a new way of looking at stuff. So that's Oddity. This is called Ophi's Ghosts. And this is about a young girl who's, the book opens when her father comes in and awakens her and tells her to hide. She's living back, I think they're sharecroppers in the South. And he at the turn of the century, and he just rails her, he gets right out of bed and makes her go and hide. And she doesn't even know what's going on. But later it turns out it was his ghost. He had been lynched, and she has to go be a servant with her mom. She's a job, but she's struggling to understand why she can see ghosts, why that happened, and also brings in a lot of the whole Jim Crow era challenges, laws, horrible things that people had to deal with. But I thought it was really quite mystical and cool. And so this is called Ophi's Ghosts by Justina Ireland. She's done some other books that we like. And I'm kind of short on copies right now, but I know we will be getting more. Pax Goes Home, the sequel to Pax. I don't need to say much about it except the duo of Sarah Pennypacker and John Klassen between illustration and story is just lovely. And I could frame every page in this book too. So that is out now. This, so cool. This is called, get it on there. This is Pony by Patricia Pilacco. Sorry, wrong. By RJ Palacio. We were talking about Patricia Pilacco today, so she's in my brain. This is the first book that has been written that's not part of the Wonder family of stories. And I imagine it's always hard to come up with a new story when you've had so much success with one book, one canon. And this is so cool. It's like a Western and a ghost story and a boy and a pony. It's a good pony. It was really a good book. And again, sometimes I start these things a little skeptical, like not sure how they're going to follow up what they've done in the past. And she did a great job. I even gave it to my mom to read and she liked it. And liked all the slight ghostly elements. So that's Pony. This one, I will tell you, I have not read, but I can't keep it on the shelf. The kids have figured this out. This is a cool book. It's called The Adventure Is Now by Jess Redmond. And everyone's been absolutely loving it. And I can't even tell you much about it. You know, I can read the flyleaf, but you can do that. It's this kid who's like trying to cope with just getting through life with a falling apart family and being kind of a weird kid at school. And then his parents ship him off to the remote Lone Island for the summer, whereas Uncle Evan is an ecologist, and it's what takes place there. But I mean, I had a kid come in yesterday. He's like, "Do you have anything that's just like this?" Because I read it. It was great. So I will read it, but it snuck up on me. So The Adventure Is Now by Jess Redmond. I'd say you're in good shape to buy it and have kids like it, because they often, those are the ones that are so cool, the ones that they find themselves. This just arrived. Any issues with the author aside, it looks like it's going to be fun. It's The Christmas Pig by Jk Rowling. It's about this boy, Jack, who loves his childhood toy, Dur Pig, named DP. And I did start it, and man, Jk Rowling can tell a story. I have not finished it, but it's illustrated, it's fun. It's although it is about, I mean, it's about the pig. It's Christmassy, but not only Christmas. So it doesn't have to be, it's not like a Christmas tale alone, but it's the subtext is one boy and his toy are about to change everything. So I think it could be fun. And that's it right there. Okay, this was great. This is The Ghosts of Midnight Lake, can't read backwards, by Lucy Strange. She did a book a couple of years ago that I really liked. And it was called The Secrets of Nightingale Wood. I thought it was really cool. And so this one is a girl she's kind of like, I mean, kind of like a little princessy sort of story, in that she's the lady, the mistress, the daughter of the Duke and the Duchess or whatever. And her mom's died and her dad dies, and an evil uncle shows up and basically evicts her. He's like, but it passes in succession to him, not to her. And he boots her out and she has to go live in the village, and she knows nothing of life other than what she's always known. But she's so resilient, and she's so learns to be brave and learns to figure things out. And somehow stories of resilience always resonate with me, particularly these days when there's so many challenges. But she ends up solving a mystery. Once again, there's a few ghosts, but I just thought it was really good. I think that that kids will like it, because it doesn't read like an old-fashioned story, but it does have those elements of Secret Garden and Little Princess kind of back in the day. This is The Legend of Auntie Poe. This is a graphic novel. It's on the short list for the National Book Award. And it's about a young girl living in the Sierra Nevada logging camps in the mid 1800s, like post gold rush. And she entertains other kids in the various logging camps by telling them stories. Essentially, they're the stories of Paul Bunyan, but she has made up Auntie Poe, the gigantic elderly Chinese matriarch who could probably cut down even more trees than Paul Bunyan. And so it deals with all the racism and challenges that happened at that time, and her experience in these gold rush logging camps, and also these tall tales that she tells. And it's really great. I think kids will like it. I can see why it's getting so much acclaim, because it's a really good book. So The Legend of Auntie Poe by Xing Yin Kor, graphic novel. I don't know how many of you are fans of Jonathan Stroud, who did the Amulet of Samarkand and the Bartimaeus stories and some of the other ones, but he has a new one out called I can't read upside down, The Outlaws, Scarlet and Brown. And it opens with the girl, Scarlet, who's our protagonist, who's very savvy and on her own and not afraid to, if people come after her, I mean, she may kill them, but I mean, they deserved it. It wasn't like she goes preying after people, but she's very much has her wits about her. She's very clever and savvy. And then she meets an injured boy after a train accident, and she keeps trying to get rid of him and not have him follow her, but he's desperate to have some help, and he seems very green and uncertain, and so they reluctantly team up. But then it turns out he has some special skills, and since she's a known bank robber, they team up and have some fun. So it's Jonathan Stroud he tells the best stories, and he's got such humor that comes through his stories. So I have really liked it. I'm glad it's out. I had been sort of wondering what he had next for us, because he's been here a few times and he's such a sweet person, and we hadn't been seeing anything lately. So anyway, The Outlaws, Scarlet and Brown, highly recommend. Then I'm always showing this woman's books. This is probably the most accessible and coolest one yet. This is The Stolen Prince of Cloudburst by Jacqueline Moriarty. And she's just flippin' clever. Her characters are funny. And this is basically a few girls at a girls' school. It focuses on Esther, who's the middle child, and sort of a concept that starts happening at school where nobody is being outwardly cruel, but everybody's being undermined, and people start doubting themselves. And she can't figure out what's going on. Her best friends aren't at school anymore, and even that's kind of weird. Oh, so good. She just, I always read her stuff when it comes in because it's just so entertaining. So set in a world that is not ours, but is not unlike ours, and but with a bit of magic and good guys and bad guys. And yeah, loved it. Stolen Prince of Cloudburst by Jacqueline Moriarty. Sadly, alphabetically, this is rather similar. These are The Troubled Girls of Dragomir Academy by Anne Ursu, another person who weaves a good tale. Like if I had to choose, I would take Jacqueline Moriarty's, but this is similar in that this girl is not blessed with magic, and she is sent to a school for kids who they're kind of losers. Like they have no real purpose. They'll probably learn how to be servants or something very low meaning because their town is very judgmental. And as the girls start comparing notes and banding together in a good way, they discover strengths that they didn't know they had, and uncover some really problems with the sort of patriarchy, which is what a lot of Anne Ursu's books do. But anyway, it was an enjoyable read. So that is that. Watching my clock here, 7:10. Okay. We have had so much fun with Stephan Pastis's new graphic novel, Troubletown. #1, Squirrel Do Bad. And this is about, he's visited some schools, by the way, and we've had some great school visits with him, but this is about a little girl who inadvertently causes havoc because she gives sugar to a squirrel. First time he's ever had sugar. And when he can't get any more sugar, things in town begin to blow up, like right away. And it's there's chapter 5, in which so many shocking things happen. You may faint. It's fun and funny, and kids have been having a blast with it. And Stephan is also the author of the Pearls Before Swine comic strip and the Timmy Failure books. And he's irreverent and funny, and the kids kind of get the jokes. They get the slight cynicism and slight silliness. Stephan said that he was actually inspired to do a graphic novel after he was here, and he's friends with Dave Pilkey and got to see one of Dave's presentations. He's like, I want to do that. I want to try and do that. And I think he did a really good job with it. So Troubletown, Squirrel Do Bad by Stephan Pastis. That's out now. And if you're desperate for a school visit, we might be able to get them to do 1 or 2 more. These books, I talked about this one last year. It's a graphic novel. I mean, it reads a little bit young, but this one they're called The Unsolved Case Files. And this first one was about D.B. Cooper, the hijacker who hijacked the plane, got $1 million, and then parachuted out. But they do such a good job presenting actual back matter kind of data, and then doing it in a graphic novel format, teaching you about the planes. And it's fascinating. It's fascinating, and introduces kids to a real life mystery. And the second one just came out. It's called Jailbreak at Alcatraz. And that deals with the 3 guys who were purportedly escaped have never been seen since they left the island, and all the clues that they have about those guys. It's going to be an ongoing series, but these two are really fun. And I think both your graphic novel kids and your kids who like the I Survived books and the history type books will have a good time with these. So Unsolved Case Files, Alcatraz, and Escape at 10,000 Feet. I have a book, I skipped over two, I realized, because they're further back. This one ages up and down very well. We presented it last night as well. It's called Hear My Voice. And it's in English and Spanish, reads halfway through in English and halfway through in Spanish. And it is testimonies of children detained at the southern border of the United States. And the author went and talked to kids and both got their impressions and their stories of what it's been like there, and then illustrated them. And it's gripping. In some ways, it's very depressing, but I think it will also be so informative for kids who they don't even know what it means to be leaving your entire world behind to emigrate someplace you might be safer. So I think you do a lot with it. And I love the way that they talk to kids and got their stories firsthand, as opposed to somebody guessing what it's like there. So again, Hear My Voice, compiled by William Binford. Last year, we talked about Sleuth and Solve, the logic puzzles, and they have two new editions. One is on history, and this one is on spooky things. But again, it's a spread that gives you a problem to solve, and then you have to come up with you have to solve the problem, but you have to do it using logic, because they've given you various things that if you look at them, you'll be able to figure out. And I say you because it's not me. Usually kids have to explain them to me, but it's very cool. Mind twisting mysteries. And this one has been inspired by creepy characters. So the Loch Ness Monster has a spread and all that. So that is called Spooky Sleuth and Solve. And then there's a couple of books that aren't on your list, if you even have a list. Jinxed and its sequel Unleashed has been very popular. The first one, it sold well for us. And then I had a young man in last week and I said, hey, try reading that. And he went and read both of them in a couple of days. And he's like, they're really good, but it's basically a world where your cell phone, your GPS, everything you have is actually an electronic animal familiar, kind of like a Tamagotchi that's a little bit more capable. Like this girl's cat is actually how she sends emails and texts and GPS tracking and all that. And there are some really good characters and some exciting things that go on. It's got a computer element to it, but very well done. I liked it a ton. So these are both by Amy McCullough, Jinxed, and its sequel, Unleashed. Then I found 3 today. That's not true. I found 1 today, and I thought it was really good. This is called This Is Our Rainbow, and there's stories by various writers, 16 stories of her, him, them, and us. And it looks at different characters, whether they're gay or transgender or non-binary. And it's just a story about them. It's not like a story about being transgender. It's just a story about a character who may be defined that way and referred to that way in the story. There's, one of those stories is a graphic novel, and the kids introduce themselves using their pronouns as well as their names. And it's so matter of fact that I think it'd be a nice thing to have in any classroom, and let kids just make it so normalizes everyone's, whatever anyone's pronoun is, it normalizes. And then the last 2. So anyway, that one was called This Is Our Rainbow. And then the last 2 I have is a series. There are 3 in this series. It's called Awesome Space, Everything Awesome Sharks, and there's an Everything Awesome Dinosaurs. And they're written and illustrated by Mike Lowry, who does, I think DK is great. And I think that the presentation in DK books, kids are really used to, and they like reading all that facts, but sometimes they can be intimidating if you're not a big reader. And so all of these facts, which are determined not to show up, are presented in just a fun and friendlier way. And so I think that these books will appeal to them because they're so easy to pick up and read a page or 2 without looking too sciencey or too textbooky. So again, this is the Everything Awesome series about space, about dinosaurs, and about sharks. And speaking about everything awesome, you guys are all doing a great job. I know we talked about Carrie Holt. Let me know if you're interested in her doing a drive-by to your school. We talked about money for schools, talked about seeing you at shopping tomorrow night. And any questions? Is anybody still out there? Yeah, there are a few people. So I hope you've enjoyed it, and I hope that we keep doing these. Maybe they'll be in person next time. That would be great. And thanks so much for joining, and we'll see you. Either feel free to jump onto the high school one, and otherwise we'll see you at the shopping tomorrow night. Thanks so much, you guys. Good night.